Howdy, Louise. My name is Louise Yardumian, and I'm a member of St. Hagop Armenian Church in St. Petersburg, Florida. I was born in Detroit, Michigan, and attended church at St. John Armenian Church. My musical life started when I heard a friend play a piano recital. It made a great impression on me, and one day when I came home from school, I was in the first grade, I told my parents, I want a piano. Well, this kept going on, and finally they realized that I was serious. So they bought me a piano. I started piano lessons with this sweet older lady, Mrs. Gertschy, and then eventually switched over to Mrs. Roster. And I still keep in touch with her to this day. In fact, she came to our son's wedding last December. When I was in 5th grade, I handed my mother my autograph book, and I asked her to sign it. She wrote, among other things, I hope that one day you will play the organ in church. At 13, I played my first Divine Liturgy service on the organ at St. John's. Deacon Harry Akesian, who studied with Gomidas Vartabed, was the choir director. What a remarkable man he was. Actually, they were both pretty remarkable. The organ was a little 2-manual Hammond. I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was one of the thrills of my life to fulfill my mother's wish, and it made a great influence on my life. I ended up playing the flute, the oboe, the piccolo, beside the piano and the organ. Eventually, the church got a pipe organ, and that was a thrill. Now they have a bigger pipe organ with lots of toots and whistles. But how do you play one of these instruments? The answer? Very carefully. Enough about my past. Let's think about your future as an organist in your Armenian church. What's the difference between a piano and an organ? A piano has 88 keys, 1 keyboard, 2 or 3 pedals, and wire strings on a soundboard that vibrate and make the notes sound. It can be a spinet, an upright, or a big grand. An organ, you have 2 to 5 keyboards, sounds of many instruments such as flute, clarinet, strings, brass, like trumpet and French horn. On an electronic organ, the sound comes out of the speakers. On a pipe organ, the sound comes from the pipes, which can be open or enclosed behind a screen. That is a whole lecture in itself. We're not going to tackle that today. But normally, when you play a brass or woodwind instrument, you must blow air into the instrument. Use your fingers to play several keys or maybe a few valves, and blow. On a violin or other stringed instruments, you must most often slide the bow across the strings while your other hand is fingering the notes on the fingerboard. And you get different sounds, different notes. You get 1 note at a time with wind instruments, or 2 or 3 notes on a stringed instrument, tops. But with an organ, you can play more than 1 note at a time, using both your hands and your feet. But as soon as you let go of the keys, the sound stops. You can play chords in both hands, then add 1 foot or both feet. You have more notes. You can choose 1 or several sounding instruments to play at once, or a solo instrument with accompaniment. You play with both hands and possibly both feet, all at once. It's crazy. On a piano, you have a sustaining pedal that will sustain the sound for a little bit longer, but you can't hold a note for a long time without the sound disappearing. If you keep your fingers on the keyboard of an organ, it will sound until you take your fingers off. That's when it stops. As you probably are aware, organs are often very expensive instruments. We must always take great care to keep them clean and working properly. We must always use great care, and you always have to be very careful. To sit on the bench, you must remember one extremely important thing. Do not stand on the foot pedals. The pedal board must never have one's weight on it. I'm going to say it again. Never, ever, don't stand on the foot pedals. When you're ready to sit down, sit on the edge of the bench and slide over the middle to the center to center yourself in front of the keyboards. Just as you would shine up your flute or French horn, you need to wipe the organ keys with a damp cloth. Not wet with water dripping everywhere, just a damp cloth, and immediately dry them off. Don't forget the toe studs too. And the pedals can be dusted, but before and after you play, dust the organ console and keep the organ keyboards protected by closing the roll top down when you are not done using it. Okay, let's say you're ready to sit on the bench. Let's go over to the bench. Okay, let's say you're sitting on the bench. You're getting ready. You come over to the bench. You make sure it's straight and parallel with the keyboards and also the right height. Sit in the middle of the bench so that you're with middle E and F in front of you. And placement of the bench can be moved back or forward to make sure you can play all manual and pedals comfortably. You might have to adjust the height of the bench so your feet can hang slightly in front of the pedal board. If you have an adjustable bench, you can crank it up and down. Or you can add slats or wood blocks under the ends of the bench to raise the pedal bench if the bench is too low. Sit relaxed and straight as if you have a string holding you up from the top of your head, to quote organist Jonathan Scott. If you have an adjustable bench, make sure to set it so that you can reach the pedal board, but that it is also not too high. When you are sitting on the bench and ready to get started, turn on the organ. Okay, now let's look at the organ. As I said, you may have between 2 and 5 manuals. Probably 2, maybe 3, possibly 4, but probably not 5. That's a big organ, and probably costing in the millions. These keyboards are not keyboards, they're called manuals. And for your feet, pedal boards. Most of us have 2 manuals. The swell manual is on top, and the grate is the lower manual. On a pipe organ, the swell is the division whose pipes are enclosed in a swell box. So the only way to gradually increase or decrease the loudness of the pipe is to enclose it in a swell box and then to gradually open and close the shutters. You probably have either draw knobs, like I do, or some that will rock back and forth. But to save time and be able to put down the combination of stops you want to use ahead of time, we have what we are calling pistons. Little buttons, like these, little buttons that are under the swell or the grate. And then you press one of the pistons for use, like that, and they automatically pop on. The settings that you have done in advance, or from the day before, or the week before, or whatever. It has a memory in there, and it just keeps it. Okay, so, now, if you want, like I said, these little buttons are the pistons. This group is for the swell. This group of 5 is for the grate. And these only work the stops that are on the swell. These 5 only work the stops that are on the grate. The ones that are over here on the side, these 1 through 5 and 6 through 10 over here on the right, those are called general pistons because they bring on the stops for both the swell, pedal, and the grate all at once. Let me show you. All right, now let's try this. Okay, so we've got stops that are coming on the swell. Nothing else is popping up. All right? All right, now let's go down to the grate. And that's on this side. And you have the knobs just pop right out, but nothing is moving over here and nothing is moving for the bass pedals. Now, if I hit one of these general pistons, you're going to see action on all of these, okay? And they just pop right on, and you're ready to play. So, let us see. There's one other thing I want to tell you. There's more pistons, which are called toe studs, for the stops that, the pistons that work the whole organ. And they are over here, underneath the organ, on top of the pedal board. And what you do is and they're called toe studs, I think I said that. And this is for general 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, if you're too busy with your hands to push a button, then you can always hit one of these with your foot. But you know what? You've got to be really careful, because you may hit the wrong one and then you're going to be in trouble. All right, so now let me show you something else. Most probably you have a transposer knob someplace on your organ. Look on the right side first. It probably will turn clockwise and counterclockwise. And it moves by half step. It will stay like that until you change it back. So you have to remember to turn it off or turn it back to where it was before you changed it. And one note, in our Badadak books, when you turn to the midday Alleluias, in order to keep them in the same key as the Holy Badadak, you should turn the transposer up 1, which is a half step. Then it will match the music before the midday Alleluia and what will be coming after the Alleluia. So you have to make sure you turn it back to where it was in the beginning. It's much easier for all involved, but just don't forget. When you're finished practicing, or if you want to cancel out what you have on the organ that's already, let's say you've got general piston 4 on, and you want to just maybe get up from the bench for a minute, instead of pushing everything all over the place, what you would do is press the cancel button, which is on my organ over on the right, and it, bingo, magic, everything goes away. You don't have any sound on the organ when you press that. If you have the organ on and you cancel, it's off, all right? Okay, so that's very handy. Now, do you use the cancel button to change pistons every time you want to change a piston? Say you want to go from 2 to 3. Do you have to cancel out and then go to 3? No. You can just hit another general piston and it will change to what that piston is. If you want to cancel everything out, you use the cancel. Or when you're done practicing, of course, you're going to use that button to make sure everything is off before you leave the bench. Okay, now other knobs. We have what's called a tuning knob over here. And this was more for music from many, many years ago. They used to tune the organs differently. Today, I think that probably what you would use it for is when you have an organ that is electronic and pipe. There's a combo organ. St. John's has one, that bigger one with all the toots and whistles I was telling you about. That has the pipes from the first organ when they went into the new church, and they used the pipes, and then they got this big Rogers electronic organ that incorporates the pipes with the electronic organ works. And you have to tune the pipes and the organ, the electronic organ, together anytime you're going to play a service, because otherwise it could be way off, especially when it's cold outside. Those pipes are cold and they go flat. So the organist has to push a button over here, turn on after the organ is on, and play a note, probably A, and then she has to regulate the organ and the pipes so that they are in tune. Okay, now here's a memory button. This button has to do with all of these pistons. There's 2 memories on this organ. Right now I'm on memory 2, and I'm going to press piston 2. If I go to memory 1 and I press piston 2, it's different. Why? Because it's a whole set of memory times 2. So you have 10 general pistons, but you really have 20, because there's 2 sets of memory. And that's wonderful when you have 2 or 3 people playing the organ. People can set the pistons that they want and have them ready. Or you might be doing a recital, or maybe somebody else is going to come in and play the organ while you're away. A lot of different things. But you have a lot of memory, so make sure that you have it on whichever one your stops are set for before you start pressing the general pistons. Okay, now we're going to show you some couplers on this organ. When you need to have sounds go from one manual to the other, you do this. And here are the ones. Now this is for grate to pedal 8. So anything that's on the grate in the pedal will go to pedal. The grate stops will go to the pedal. So let's listen and see. Let's turn this. All right, now. Okay. Here's, I'm going to put on a little bit more sound on the organ. Okay, so this is, voila, you have more stops on the pedal. This is from the swell. Whatever you have there, it comes on. Okay? Now, this is from the swell to the grate. From going from this manual, you want all of these stops and what you're playing here to work on the grate manual. Okay? So, let's see what we've got here. All right. Okay, now 16, 8, and 4, what's that all about? Okay, 8 is middle C, that's the sound of middle C. If you have 16, that's going to go down an octave, that's 1 octave lower. If you put on something that's for a 4, you're adding an octave higher. And if you have something that is a 2, it's already up. Okay. That's an octave higher than that. So, 8 is normal, 16 is down an octave, 4 is up an octave, 2 is up another octave, and 1 is up another. Okay. So those are your couplers. They're very handy, and wonderful to have. It makes a huge difference in playing. There's something else on this organ that I want you to know. I'm sure that you have one too someplace, but I don't know exactly where it would be. And that would be a tremolo. If you're playing use this all the time. In fact, you shouldn't use it when you're playing for the choir because it will be hard for them to hear the pitch because it wobbles. But if you're playing something that is a solo, it'll soften it a little bit and make it easier to listen to. So there's a lot of nice, fun little gimmicks on here. And I'm sure you have them too. All right, let's see what else. The better you play the piano, the easier is it going to be for you to play the organ? Really? Yes, most probably it is. Because when you're playing the organ, you have more to think about than playing the notes and making beautiful music on a piano. Playing the organ, you must think about different registrations, what sounds you want to bring out, using the foot pedals, switching keyboards while accompanying on another keyboard and playing the pedals with your feet. When you want to play loudly on a piano, you strike the keys with great bodily strength for more sound. If you want to play loud on an organ, let's see if that will work. All right, here it is if I just hold on to it. Okay, now, say we want it louder than that. Doesn't get any louder. But if we add there's ways that you can get more sound. You have to either put on more stops, more instrument sounds, or you can use the expression pedal. And that's what I'm doing right now with my foot. And that's making it louder, isn't it? But my hands are not working real hard. They're just staying on the keys so that the sound continues. That's it. Once the hands come up, done. Now, let's talk about these expression pedals a little. That will help you with your crescendo, and they're very near the foot pedals. And these are the ones that we have on our organ. The great is first. The swell, for the swell pedal, keyboard is here. And this is a crescendo pedal, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. Now, when you want to get a fuller sound coming from each of your manuals, you press the pedal so that it goes away from you. That would be helpful if I played the right pedal. There we go. To make it softer, bring it back and put it in the closed position, and it gets softer. When you do it, do this slowly, all right? Don't all of a sudden jerk it open or bring it back. Always easy does it. Now, same thing goes for the great. And sometimes if you happen to be playing on both and you want a crescendo on both, you put your foot on both of these two pedals, and it's called a, a shoe. It's called a shoe. So you put your foot, your shoe, on top of two shoes, and it'll get louder on both manuals. Now, there's something else that we have, and that is a crescendo pedal. So that's, the pedal is over here, or the shoe is here, and it works by adding on other things, like instead of you pulling all these out, it's going to do it by itself. All right, so I'm going to hold a chord here, and we're going to make this get okay. So you heard a little bit of a crescendo with more bass and some of the things that we have, the other stops that we have on the organ. We also have a tutti button, and that tutti button is, where is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. It's right over here, and it will bring on a lot of sounds very loud. The seat is rumbling from the bottom. Okay, so we don't really ever need to use that when we're in church. We don't have anything that is going to be that big that we have to have that full an organ. If you're playing for a wedding and you want to use the crescendo pedal or the tutti, you might use it for procession or procession out, but there's really no way that we need that in church services. And basically, I think that's the kind of music that we're talking about today. So just be very, very careful. Now, if you want to make a crescendo by yourself, you can do that. Now, you start by coupling the swell to the great. Remember, we said we were going to do the swell to great. And then play on the great with a quiet 8-foot flute from the swell. All right, so we're going to play here with an 8-foot flute, okay, from the swell. Then we're going to add another soft 8-foot and a quiet 4-foot, and then a 2-foot. And then we're going to add a soft stop on the great, an 8-foot stop on the great. And then a 4-foot, we've got a flute 4, and a principal 8-foot, and an octave 4, a reed from the swell, Nazard 2 2/3, an octave 2, which I ran out on this one. I don't have any more 2s, so I'll go over here. And then open up the swell box, and then you could add a mixture. So a mixture could be the tiers 1 and 3/5. You hear that? And then what you do is you have to reverse what you did, and you get your diminuendo. Voila. All right, so that's getting your own crescendo. If you want to build it up as you're playing like high mare, you could do that. Or you can preset and go from 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 and do that way also. Okay, now, next thing we want to talk about is organ shoes. This is important that you buy yourself a good pair of organ shoes. It can help your pedaling technique. You can't use outdoor shoes. You could get the pedals dirty, gritty, sticky, and then you're going to be in trouble. And definitely don't play without shoes, because then you can hurt your tendons and even get a splinter, who knows. But a thin-soled leather shoe with no edge and a heel that allows you to play the foot pedals is easier. And I have, see, this is the heel on my shoe. That's a real organ heel, organ shoe heel. These shoes are pretty, but they're really not leather soled, and I see the difference. Because you can't slide quite as well as if it were leather. But no small heels, because you don't want to have your heel go into the crack of the pedal board, okay? So, foot pedals, what a joy. All right, takes a lot of work, but it's worth it. So let's keep going here. All right, now you press the pedals on the pedal board and they play. One pedal, one foot. Let's put something on here. Okay. Works lovely, right? Okay. It's the same as a keyboard. It plays the sound. It comes out, you put your foot down and it plays. You pick up your foot and the sound stops. Same process. But you have 2 feet and lots of pedals, and you have black keys and white keys and black and white. You've got a lot of work to do to get your feet to go where they're supposed to go. When tackling the pedal board, your toes play the sharps and your heels play the flats. Now, when I say your toes, I'm not talking about an individual toe is going to hit that note and play it. It's the space between the toes and the ball of your foot where you're actually hitting the black note on the pedal board. So when you're not playing a pedal with your foot, you can put one foot on one of the shoes on the where your pedals are up here, and you can put your left foot on the crossbar of the bench. There's a crossbar on the bench, and you can just stick your foot there, and your heel will catch in that, and it'll be comfortable there. But then you just pull it down, and then it's ready to go again. Okay. Now, when you're tackling the pedal board, your toes play the sharps and the flats, like I said, and heels play the naturals. But in order to do this, sometimes you might have to swing and swivel a little bit so you can get to all the notes. It's a pretty big pedal board, especially on the right side. Now, you're sitting directly in the middle, like around E and F again. That's where you were supposed to sit from the beginning. And your feet will be just hanging in that spot, or in the position that I just told you about. Now, when you start to play and you're playing your hands, you're not going to always look down. You're supposed to be looking at the conductor, right? So you can't look down all the time, but you are going to look at the foot pedals. There's no doubt about that, and you should. But there's a few things that you can also do to help you. First of all, the left foot doesn't play all the notes on the left only, and the right foot doesn't play just all those notes. There are many times when that's why you're swiveling, because your feet have to go around here, and you might have to play below middle C for using your right foot, or where is it in our service that I oftentimes, before surp, there's a spot where I swivel over and I'm playing a lot of places, but you have to get used to swiveling and being free with where you're going to put your feet. These are the symbols. When we want to put fingerings, if you want to know what finger you used because it's a tough spot and you want to know how to do that, you use 1 through 5. You just put it over the notes. Well, the arrows and the U's or the circles are what you use for your feet. The arrow going up is for your left foot, and you put that under the music, under the staff of the music. And if it's for your right foot, if you need to play that note with your right foot, you can put a reversed arrow, with V, on top of the note, so you know that's with your right foot. And for your left foot, you write a U. To me, it looks like a heel. And a right foot, you put it, again, over the note. This is under the note, so you know left from right. And the same thing with the circles, okay? Now, coordination is always a problem at first, and even past the first. So we're going to try a couple of things now, and unfortunately, you're probably not sitting at an organ so that you can do this with me, but I'll show you what to do, and then you can do it when you get to church and you practice on your organ. You're going to use your heels and your toes. I told you about toes and the front part of the foot. Okay, so we're going to play a note with our left hand. Well, good if we get some music on. Okay, and then we're going to play a note. Wait, what did I say, left? Okay. All right, with our left hand. Okay, my left hand. Okay, and now we're going to play the same note with our left foot. And now we're going to play both notes exactly at the same time. Good, Louise. Now, let's try playing a note with our right hand. And play a foot pedal with our right foot. Very well done. Let's do it again. Not quite together. Okay, and you keep doing that. Now, try with your left foot and your right hand. Same note. Okay, left foot, let's see, left foot and right hand. You get the idea. You have to alternate hands and feet, and then eventually you play them together, and you're good. Fear not, it will happen, but it does take practice. Now here's some more hints for playing the pedals. Keep your heels together, and the space between those heels being together and your toes is a fourth on the keyboard, like C to F, fourth, okay? And that's what you've got here on your feet, C and F, all right? And that's very helpful because sometimes you can't look and you have to figure out where you are. Now, another thing you can do is what's called mind the gap. And that's to put your foot in between the B flat and the C on the pedal board, and you can feel that space because it's a bigger space than what's in between A flat and B flat, right? Of course. So, and the same thing with E flat and F. Those two spaces, feel the gap, and then that will help you to know where you are so that you can place your foot and play on the right pedal. Now, pre-locate is another thing that you can do. Get that foot ready ahead of time. If you know that you're going to be playing something and you need to have it down here on low E, feel, and then just place it there, but just don't press. And it's all ready for you to go. This is really funny. Try easy pedal parts first. Of course, that's the best way to do it. You don't want to do the Toccata and Fugue in D minor by Bach when you're first starting out, obviously. So pick a hymn, and that's what we're really working with. Our music is not that hard. So it's not like we have hymns, new hymns to play every week, and preludes and postludes and something during the offertory time. So, you know, you can take one or two hymns a week and work on the pedal, work by itself, and then work with one hand, work with two hands, work with 2 feet, no hands. Try different things, and the more you do that, the easier it's going to get, and you really get more coordinated. Now, do you always use your toe? No. Do you always use your heel? No, because you can't use your heel on a black key. You don't do that. But you can use what's called heel and toe when you start out with your heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. Now, you saw me switch, didn't you? I did. Why? Because I was going to substitute. Now, when you want to play one note and go to another one, you might want to put you're playing that note with your toe. You could put your heel down and then put your toe on the next one, and this is called substitution. You're substituting your heel for your toe. And there are times when you will need to do that. Okay, now this is in reading the music. When you're playing organ music, there is the treble clef, the bass clef, and then the line is for your foot pedals. So you've got treble clef, bass clef, and then for the pedals. Now, if you don't have that, if you're playing like from the Baradak, you just have 2 lines of music. So what you want to do is take the bass part and play that with your foot or feet. And then you take the soprano and alto part and you play that with your hands, okay, with your right hand. And then you can play the tenor part with your left hand, all right? That's the best way that we can do ours. And you can mark your part if it's going to be with your heel on a note for the pedal. You can mark that music, copy it, and make a separate sheet so that you can have it. And start with that. And don't forget to take it separately, work on it, and then put it together. Work on it, put it together. If you can practice 2 or 3 days in a row, it really is helpful. Once a week, it's going to take longer. So, or you could try and do something set up at home where you just practice playing something with your right hand, pretending even. Pretend you're going to, do right hand, left, right, right, left, etc., etc. So that should help. Now, let's go to something else. Legato. Legato means smooth and connected, as joined together as possible. The piano has a pedal to connect the sound, but the organ doesn't. So we have to be very careful that we learn how to play smoothly. And the thumb is going to help us to do that. If I'm playing a part here, I substituted, I played so that I can change fingers on one note. If you're using your third finger here and you need to put your fourth finger so that you can move over to the left, that's what you have to do. Because if you just go it's too choppy. You want it smooth and connected. And it gets to be where it becomes second nature, and you're just going to do it. But it's going to take some time. So again, it's just practice, 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 practice. You call this cheating, but it's very helpful. So cheat or use what's called substitution. We're not cheating. We're making it smooth. So that's important. Now, here's some things, side notes. If you want to make a crescendo by adding stops, add the stops when there's a breathing place in the music. If you're playing a hymn and everybody's taking a breath, that's where you add your stop on. You don't want to take your hand off the keyboard to pull a stop. If you have to pull a stop instead of using a piston. Tie some notes in the alto, tenor, and bass lines. You don't want to play like that. You never tie a note in the soprano part. If there's two notes, you have to play the second note with that finger, okay? Contact your AGO, the American Guild of Organists. They have a group that gets together. They're all organists, and they help each other. They have people that give organ lessons. They have meetings where they teach you things, or you'll hear a recital. It's a wonderful group of people. They're very helpful and smart in playing the organ, and they are mostly all organ majors in college. But don't let that bother you. They're going to help you, and you can join their group. It doesn't cost that much money, and you'll get a lot of benefits from it. All right, so talking about taller people playing the organ. If you have somebody that's taller that's going to play the organ, like Father Mamigon, you would have to add blocks of wood or slats on the ends of the organ bench to raise the bench to make it the proper height for him and the length of his legs. So it's worth it. He's a great organist, so have him ready. Okay, now, when you're playing, pretend like you have two grapefruits in your hands, okay? And if you somehow could turn your hands over and keep the grapefruits there, that arch is how your hands should be playing the keyboard. We don't want to play flat-fingered. We want to play with our fingers so that the tips are what we hit with our like so. Okay. Now there's one other thing I want to talk about, and it has nothing to do with the basics about the organ. It has to do with being sensitive when you play your music. You have to be aware of how your conductor of the choir is telling the choir
to sing softly or more loudly, crescendo, diminuendo. We need to do that on the organ too. You have to go with what they're doing. We can't be playing loud if they're singing softly. So be aware of that. Study your music. Know the definition of the words that the choir is singing in the music. Each hymn is so meaningful, and you can go by what the music words, the words of the hymn are saying, how we do the dynamics. That's so important. It makes such a difference. You're helping to lead the choir in singing prayers to God. And you can help the congregation feel the beauty that we're offering in hymns of praise and thanksgiving to God each and every Sunday. Sometimes when we do something over and over again, it could get to be a habit instead of a joy. Remember, you're leading the congregation as well as yourselves to closeness, a thanksgiving, and offering to God for our blessings and answers to our prayers. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a good day. Bye now.